still got a second chance through.
And part of the hype for this year's draw has been that a lot of the favorites, three in particular, were all drawn into Group A. And this is Team Liquid's, the group that they play first as well. Yep. So added a little bit more hype to it. 1907 Fenerbahce, Fangwu Buffalo, and Isurus Gaming, all kind of at the top echelon of the play-in stages, 4 teams. And it makes Group A definitely the group of death. People are talking about, oh, is it really? Yes.
Are you sleeping on the Oceanic Australian rules
the
football team Bombers? Yeah. How dare you?
I did do a review, a cast review for Spawn on some of their games, and it was a Bombers game. And their jungler was just like destroying, right? Yeah. So their jungler has been destroying the entire region. He's a Korean import, Balkan, and he was quite good, but overall, I think that the competition in their group is just way too strong. Yep. Vietnam has a history of success. Turkey, I think, is probably the region closest to Vietnam, even though Vietnam usually historically has had the edge over Turkey with a little bit quicker game times and play style. But I think those two are for sure kind of mad that they're in the same group because only one gets to get out of the group, right? I feel like if one was Group A and one was Group B, then those would be the two.
Right. They'd be satisfied like facing in a best of 5, assuming they both lost round 1. And then, so that's kind of unlucky, right? That they essentially have to determine who's getting out in 2 best of 1s instead of 1 best of 5. I think that's definitely a bit unlucky, but I guess we'll see what happens, and it's probably the team out of Group A that comes out.
And theoretically, it might end up being a best of 3, right? If they both 2-0 the other teams and go 1-1 against each other, then you have to have a tiebreaker. And at the end of the day, everyone is looking at Turkey and Vietnam as the 2 strongest regions. If they are truly the 2 strongest regions, then like they would have had to fight off at some point anyway, right? Like even if they're in Group A, Group B, if they go up, if they may play each other or they could possibly advance, so you kind of would have to beat a really tough opponent at some point. Hopefully for them, they can look at it through a positive, and maybe we'll get to see some really interesting strategies since it is best of 1s, right? It's not the best of 5. They a lot of preparation goes into that, where if you have your sneaky strategy, it's time to bring it out, right? It's time to try to knock down your toughest competition, because if you're saying, hey, anyone from Group B is free, then even if you lose to TL, well, you're going to play probably against one of them or someone that they just beat. So I think whoever comes out of there will be feeling pretty confident. But I know I've seen a lot of the OC guys like Rusty and Zlon and Atlas, all those guys seem pretty sad about the draw, because I think people were pretty hyped on Bombers this year and felt pretty good about their chances. But there always seems to be some stuff happening for the OCE teams that goes a little bit unlucky.
Yeah, part of the reason why people are so hyped, it's not just because of the history of Vietnam and Turkey and their success. But 1907 Fenerbahce, this iteration has Kire. Kire's played both here and in Europe. I still follow him on Twitter from when he was an NA player. And I feel like every time he posts some picture, he's rank 1
on some other server?
On European West.
Oh, okay.
And he just always holds it. He is the shot caller for the team. He has a really interesting view too, where he talks about his solo queue mentality, because people are always asking him, rank 1, how do you get rank 1 so often? Europe West is one of the biggest servers. And he always talks about playing 100% for his lanes rather than focusing on optimal jungle path or whatever. And it's so much for him about communication with those lanes and like getting them to play around, what the current game state is and trying to keep them all in line. So I just think that
shot calling solo queue.
I just think that it's so cool that he went over to Turkey. He's this big shot call. He won MVP for the league, by the way. And I just think that he's going to be one of the biggest strengths for them coming into it, because you talk about best of 1s and coming up with these strategies. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I mean they dominated regionally. They were 16-2 in their regular season. They went on a 20 single game.
They won a 20-game win streak to end the season.
Yeah, in playoffs they didn't drop a single game. It's 3-0, 3-0. So obviously extremely dominant. And one of the things that always kind of gets me excited is like, Kyrie obviously really good jungler, but also his most played was Kindred, and I'm a big Kindred fan. So I think that's always really cool when people have a little bit of a different flavor coming out of some of the other regions. Like trying to bring some of these different picks, I think can be exciting when teams aren't necessarily going to be as practiced against it or as comfortable playing against it. But then again, sometimes it's just always going to get banned.
Yeah. I mean, people could also be hyped because their bottom lane player, Hades, was a one-trick Yasuo player. And so he still got to use some Yasuo games. So they have other angles that they can go for, any sort of surprises like that for people. And best of ones are going to be big.
And you got also Funky Buffalo coming over. Who's, as far as I can tell, the same roster as Worlds last year. So they're going to kind of go for round 2 here. Good luck. They went 2-4 in group stage, which is not, the worst, right? Like they actually had some decent stuff going on. So, I mean, we talked about the other really strong teams here where, Vietnam's going to be pretty crazy. They're going to be pretty scary. Like they've continued to do really well and like make it to MSI group stage. We're like 2-3 years in a row now where like Vietnam is clearly the one that comes through and is team number 6. So, I remember having discussions before of like, hey, when does Vietnam become like a major region? When do they get to auto seed? Well, when they do what the LMS does and make it out of groups every time in the main stage, right? Like, I remember asking that question or getting that question asked to me on stream last night. It was like, when does Vietnam overtake LMS? Like, well, when they do those things, right? Like when you get out of groups every time, when you start doing well at Worlds as well, and they're getting closer and closer. Right, they won 2 games at Worlds last year, so I think this is a good shot at a team. They can get a best of 5 against TL. Like you win that one, something that's really impressive. You turn heads, like this, that could be a really good dark horse.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it is interesting because no major region team has ever actually lost their best of 5 going into MSI.
Yep.
For the first time ever, it did happen once with LMS at Worlds. So the needle is moving a little bit in that direction, and this is the year that everyone has kind of talked about as LMS being the weakest that they've ever been by far. Flash Trolls did qualify, but they were nowhere near as dominant as they have been in the past. They lost a lot of their best players. So, there are opportunities for some of these other regions to maybe, take over the LMS's spot, if LMS is sliding and these guys are improving. And it's always exciting for me to watch the Vietnamese teams because I always think of, Gigabyte Marines and teams like that and Phung Vu Buffalo. These are teams that play, a very, very fast style, and it's a very bloody region. So it's pretty exciting to watch a lot of their games.
Yeah. I mean, even though everyone's like, oh yeah, the Gigabyte Marines was their own team and that was a unique style. They do still play very quick. They have very big gold average early on, pre 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And watching some of the games, the play past 15 minutes is also extremely quick because it feels like they're always searching out for the next skirmish. And then you see just so many people collapse from all around the map. So it just feels like everybody is down or whatever play is about.
They're down to fight.
Yep. and fast aggressive play has been good before, right? You again talk about Gigabyte Marines where like they shocked people and they picked up some wins because of that kind of stuff. I think back to Cloud9 at Worlds where they were just like, no, we're going super aggressive, we're going super hard, and we're going to fight you. And they had like one of the most impressive best of 5s. They beat Afrika doing that kind of stuff. So I think Funky Buffalo can do the same kind of thing where if they're out and aggressive early on, like this can do well for them.
To me, one of the themes almost of Worlds last year was that the more aggressive, proactive teams are the ones that took over.
Vitality,
this charge, the charge that was kind of led by Vitality, Invictus Gaming, C9, all of these types of teams. That is a very similar kind of play style. So it's about honing that.
And for Group B, it is Mega from SEA, Vega Squadron from CIS, INTZ from Brazil, as well as Detonation Focus Meet from Japan. Any big favorites you guys have there?
I don't know. I think it's actually all fairly close. Like we had like the first time ever Japan, I think it was actually DFM because they finally won regionally, like finally. Like they actually made it to the best of 5s at Worlds. Like that was cool, right? They finally stepped up there. But like these are all regions where it's like, oh yeah, I remember seeing your team do well before. But seeing teams in those regions do well before, right? Like OS never makes it to playoffs, right? Like they always fail out in groups. It's like, well, even if Bombers is a good lineup, you have to show me that you can actually do this, right? And for Vietnam, it's like, well, you guys have actually made main stage before. So like, I totally believe in you guys for like recent track record. But like INTZ, remember them beating Edward Gaming, and that was like an absurd, like that was their first game of Worlds, like 2016 or something. It was like, Oh, wow. Okay. Like, are you a real team? And they didn't win anymore, but like that was impressive. I feel like maybe I shouldn't anymore, but like I always hold out hope for the CIS teams. Like I feel like they get really close to winning a bunch of these things. So I like kind of down the line, like I feel like these are a lot of good teams.
I actually think that the CIS team Vega are my heavy favorites.
Okay.
I don't think that this one is as close as people are giving it to. I know that INTZ, a lot of the Brazilian fans wanted Flamengo there instead.
Yep.
And that was a big upset in the finals.
And so then they were kind of like, oh, you're going at the end. I mean, I'm sure that they'll get behind.